Hola clase. In Spanish, you're going to have to look at, to get pronunciation right, it helps to know syllabication. That's how we break longer words up into smaller parts. All words have syllables in English and in Spanish. When you say words like Carolina in English, you can almost beat it out on the desk with your fist. We used to talk about how to count syllables by listening to the number of beats. Say the word Carolina and then tap it out on the table. Carolina. That's 4 beats, right? Carolina. To be specific, where is it exactly that we break these words up into parts? Each part is called a syllable. Technically, it's usually a consonant with a vowel. So, for example, care. In other words, let's not keep the R over here. Let's not go care-ro. Let's care-o. Let's say care-ro. And then here it's lie-na. And so it's, again, we got consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. However, sometimes a syllable can be a consonant with a couple of vowels and even a consonant at the end, or a consonant cluster is what it's called. T and H are both consonants. So, for example, south. How many syllable sounds is that? Just one. South. Here's another example. Slice. How many sounds is that? Slice. It's just one syllable sound. And yet it's got a group of consonants together. Sl. It's got a vowel in the middle. And it closes with a consonant sound of s, which in this case is a consonant even followed by another vowel, but this is still all one syllable. So what we're talking about is syllabication. Let's break up this word, which is also in Spanish. If you want to say Carolina, it's pronounced Carolina. Carolina. And I've highlighted this li because this is where you get something called the stress. In English, we stress a certain syllable in every word we speak, and the same is true in Spanish, only their rules of stress are different from ours. But let's figure out which syllable is stressed in English. Carolina. I'm from South Carolina. In English, we stress the lie. I'm from South Carolina. In Spanish, they actually stress the same syllable, though it sounds differently. Carolina. Carolina. Let's say this word in English. Telephone. Telephone. Which syllable is, by the way, how many syllables there? Telephone. 3. Now, which one is stressed? Answer the telephone. We stress the first syllable in English, telephone. I want to explain the rule of stress in Spanish so you know which syllable to stress in Spanish. Take any word that ends in a vowel, N or S. In Spanish, you stress the next to the last syllable. So here's a word for house in Spanish, casa. How many syllables? 2. We split it right here, casa. This word ends with a vowel, so stress the next to the last syllable, casa. Say it, casa. Here's a word for a writing desk in Spanish. It's a lot of syllables here. It ends with a vowel though, so you know you need to stress the next to the last syllable. Escritorio, escritorio. Let's do some more practice. This means you work in Spanish. You work. In terms of pronunciation and stress, you're going to have 3 syllables. Trabajas. It ends with a S, and the rule says if it ends with a vowel, N or S, stress the next to the last syllable. So stress it here. Trabajas. Trabajas. Here's another word. This word means we work. It also ends with an S, so you're going to stress the next to the last syllable. Trabajamos. Trabajamos. Let's break down one whole verb in Spanish in all of its conjugated forms and see how to pronounce and stress it right. Trabajar is not conjugated. It's infinitive form, not finished. So it means to work. Notice that we're stressing the last syllable on this particular word. Did you notice that it doesn't end with a vowel, and it doesn't end with N, and it doesn't end with S? So it doesn't follow the rule of stress that we've been learning. However, these conjugated forms fit the rule of stress. This word ends with an O, so stress the next to the last syllable. I work. Trabajo. You work. Ends with an S, next to the last syllable. Trabajas. He, she, it works. Él, ella, trabaja. We work. Trabajamos. Ends with an N, so stress the next to last syllable. Trabaja. So in other words, when a word in Spanish ends in a consonant, which is not N or S, stress the last syllable. That's what we saw with this right here. This ends with a consonant. It wasn't N or S or a vowel, so it's stressed on the last syllable. Say it. To work. Trabajar. Trabajar. Let's get some more practice. The word color in Spanish, color, 2 syllables. Stress the last syllable, ends with an R, it's a consonant. Color. Professor in Spanish, profesor. Stress the last syllable. University ends with a consonant D, universidad, universidad. Exceptions to the rule of stress use a written accent mark. For example, information in Spanish is información. This ends with a consonant N, but it's that exception N. So anytime a word ends with an N, an S, or a vowel, you're supposed to stress the next to the last syllable. So normally you would say información. However, that's incorrect stress. In Spanish, you're supposed to stress the last syllable, but that breaks the rule. So you're going to have to put a written accent mark here to tell the person to say información, información. We're going to look at this example too with this verb in a second. But I had a little video I was going to show you. Nice song performed by Nat King Cole, in which he says this word here, and you see there's a written accent mark on it. In this famous song that's being performed in this video by Nat King Cole, the word perhaps, which in Spanish is quizás, is two syllables, qui, divided, and then sas. Notice the accent mark that goes over the a for the second syllable. If a word ends with an S, an N, or a vowel in Spanish, you have to stress which syllable? The next to the last syllable. So the last syllable is sas. So you are supposed to stress this syllable, qui, quizás, quizás. But the correct pronunciation for this word, meaning perhaps in Spanish, is quizás. The correct stress in Spanish is to stress the last syllable. The rule says in Spanish that if the regular rule does not apply, in other words, if we can't follow the regular rule tells us to stress the key, then we use a written accent mark to tell the person that you need now to stress this syllable, stress the last syllable. Quizás, quizás, quizás. That's called the rule of stress. And when you use a written accent mark in Spanish, you will always stress the word on the syllable where the written accent mark is. Great, so now let's listen to Nat King Cole's excellent training that he had, coaching, to pronounce Spanish correctly and stress words in the right place. And there it is, quizás, quizás, quizás. Let's get this, I think we're down to the last one. So here's that verb, estar. How are you? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? You may have noticed that the verb estar has an accent mark over this a. And again, now you're going to understand why. Because let's analyze this word. It's two syllables, te, and then the estás. If a word ends with an S, an N, or a vowel, normally you stress the next to the last syllable. So normally you would say estas, estas. But that's incorrect pronunciation and stress in Spanish, and so they're going to have us put an accent mark over the last a, so that it'll force us to follow that lead and put a stress here. So let's ask how are you in Spanish correctly. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? There we go. That's the end of this lesson. Thank you.